You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
Star Wars changed in 2012.
And Disney now owns The Force and says it has plans for more Star Wars movies.
That's right, George Lucas has signed over Lucasfilm.
But I have this theory as to why this is the case, and it's probably not what you're thinking about right now. Because here's the hot take. The algorithm era of entertainment is here, and it's watering down our favorite modern mythologies to the point where the films that defined our own childhood have become franchise entertainment and worse, content. Content that's as bland as it is forgettable. You know, I've been reflecting a lot lately about how social media algorithms really dictate most of the content that we consume, to include this YouTube video, by the way. But it's this endless cycle that's designed to keep us engaged and addicted and trapped in mindless consumption. Social media and streaming platforms don't just suggest what you might like. They literally shape your tastes in media. They nudge us towards whatever's trending and whatever's going to keep us watching just a little bit longer. And it makes me think about the stories that shaped me growing up. We're talking about Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, the Chronicles of Narnia. These were human stories that were so exciting. They were like a core part of my own childhood. And now these stories belong to these massive entertainment corporations, and now we are in this streaming era of storytelling that's shaped not by original creative visionaries, but by audience metrics and by corporate strategy. So what's the result? We get safe, boring, bland storytelling with a noticeable lack of heart. So let's take the Disney era of Star Wars, which, by the way, is easily criticized. I'm not doing fast food criticism of Star Wars, which is to say regurgitating hot takes of whatever trends on YouTube. I'd like to go a little bit more in depth in this video and talk about this undeniable shift in overall storytelling philosophy compared to the original George Lucas era. We're going to go a little bit beyond the Jake Skywalker criticism and actually try to dig into and explain why and some of the philosophical foundations as to why this is the case. Because I am a kid, I'm a child of the prequel generation. The very first Star Wars film I ever saw was The Phantom Menace on VHS. I know.
A very good movie. I believe the kids are going to love it.
But I do remember the hate that the prequels got during that time, especially from the entertainment press and loud portions of internet fandom. But here's the thing, when Lucas created the prequels, he wasn't trying to cater to fan expectations. He was telling the story that he wanted to tell, and he was making bold and sometimes wacky choices, like the entire existence of Jar Jar Binks, the fact that Anakin Skywalker's a 9-year-old boy, layering in the complex backdrop of galactic politics and trade disputes. But George Lucas had a vision for the story that he wanted to tell, even if it wasn't universally appreciated at the time. Now, let's fast forward a little bit, because this is more easily forgotten, but I remember 2008 and the release of the original Clone Wars film. We had really centrally the character of Ahsoka Tano, who was initially met by disdain and ridicule by whole portions of the internet fandom again, being criticized for being too bratty and too annoying.
You're stuck with me, Sky Guy.
What did you just call me?
But again, Lucas didn't care about that criticism because he had an arc for the character of Ahsoka that he knew she was going to go on. He knew she would find her place in the mythology that he created. He didn't care what fans on the early Twitter and online forums said. And over time, characters like Ahsoka, and dare I even say it, Jar Jar Binks, have found their place in the story. And this is because they were crafted with passion and creativity by one of our culture's final and last independent filmmakers. These characters were not a reaction to focus groups or social media discourse. That's the contrast that we're talking about. And this isn't even necessarily a thing to just blame Disney on. I think this is the reality of a massive culture shift that we've experienced, because it's almost impossible, I think, these days in any kind of Hollywood production to tell an original story without polluting the creative process with the input of the entire internet, because that's just the nature, the reality of the culture that we live in. It's like this massive explosion of what used to happen with the old school Hollywood focus groups. George has always talked about how much he hated the idea of these studios bringing in focus groups to give some notes for the editing process so they could edit the film to please the audience. And that's George Lucas hated that for good reason.
Nobody knows what to do. The stories they're telling are just old movies. Let's do a sequel. Let's do another version of this movie. There's no original thinking.
But now it's just like the entire internet is giving notes live. It's like the Sonic movie a couple years ago. Like, there was such a backlash to the visual design of the character of Sonic that the studio literally completely went back to the drawing board, redesigned, and reanimated the entire live-action Sonic film. It is this strange era that we live in. And that's what I'm talking about when I say that, like, storytelling has just become reactive. It's chasing engagement. And it's natural, because if you want to be a storyteller, if you're my age or younger, you've grown up in an era where your value is often defined by the engagement that you're chasing. It's literally like, how many likes do your Instagram pictures get? Like, we are measuring relevance at a very early age, and there's no way that doesn't just bleed into creative storytelling. And so studios and Disney prioritize familiarity over risk. They just aim to please rather than to challenge, and that's the problem. Hey, I'm Riley. I'm an Air Force officer and a massive nerd and a fellow geeky stoic. Hey, this is the last, this is kind of crazy. This is the last video that I'm shooting right here in my very own prison cell. I mean, that was a comment that I've got on some videos, but no, I can actually say this now. This is my dorm on my 6-month deployment. I'm literally wrapping it up as I'm filming this. By the time this video is out, I will be safely home, knock on wood. And it's been this really crazy fun experiment of being in a very different environment and having a lot more time to really think about some of the things that we care about most here at Geeky Stoics, which is that these stories that we love, especially the original ones from the original creators, George Lucas, J.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, like, they have something to tell us about how to live a better life. And that's something I've been reflecting a lot on as I'm preparing to go home, because I care about these stories, and I kind of want to I want this channel to be a place where we can celebrate and dig into the philosophy in these stories that has a deeper, more impactful meaning. And that's why I think we have to differentiate the difference in how storytelling has changed to appreciate the original storytelling, which is why it's time to talk about the power of fiction as a philosophical lens. Because there is a so what to this video. This is not just to complain, but to kind of face the reality and this truth of where corporate storytelling is now and do something about it. Because storytelling has always been a way to explore the deeper truth of the overall human condition. Fiction allows us to grapple with these really challenging ideas in a way that I think philosophy and politics or academia sometimes fail to make accessible. Because here at Geeky Stoics, we talk a lot about imagination and wonder, and like, these are two qualities that are central to the work of George Lucas, of J.R. Tolkien, of C.S. Lewis, and their stories aren't just entertainment. They're these vehicles that literally carry a timeless truth. And we know this. We grew up watching this. Like, the redemption of Darth Vader teaches us about grace and the power of choice. Luke Skywalker's hero's journey embodies like the struggle to find purpose in this big galaxy. Frodo's burden of carrying the One Ring is this lesson in perseverance and the cost of responsibility. And I think of my favorite character in Lord of the Rings, Samwise. Like, his loyalty reminds us that hope and friendship are the strongest forces against darkness. These stories resonate because they are deeply human. They are not engineered by algorithms to maximize retention rate. Like, they are not churned out as content designed for brand synergy or something like that. Like, they were created by individual human beings who believed in storytelling as an art and not as a product. Because when storytelling is driven by audience retention and metrics, and there's something essential that's lost. This pursuit of engagement overrides the pursuit of anything meaningful in the story. And I'm not saying that I think storytellers try to bring meaning into these stories. Like, I'll use the Marvel franchise. Like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has told some incredible, very meaningful, impactful stories. But I think that's despite of the era that we're in, not because of the era that we're in. And that's the struggle that I have, this realization that so much of modern storytelling is just now like a corporate maintenance of intellectual property rather than the creation of anything new or transformative.
Those big studios, I mean, they don't want that. They want something that is like something they've seen. Because they don't have an imagination to come up with, to see something that isn't there.
That begs this really important question. Like, can we reclaim original storytelling? Can we get back to big, bold, original ideas in a world where algorithms dictate success? And honestly, I don't know, man. My honest gut instinct and the cynical answer is no. Not in a culture where the dominant forces in entertainment prioritize all of the wrong things. The big studios are more concerned with towing the line and talking in the cultural language of the moment in order to keep audiences comfortable and not to challenge them and not to speak timeless truth. And the sad thing is original films do struggle at the box office. Like, studios are very risk averse, and social media's influence over entertainment I think is only continues to grow stronger. But maybe the answer isn't in Hollywood. Like, maybe the answer is like right here, because the algorithms are here to stay. You're watching this YouTube video because a robot in the YouTube machine suggested it to you. Thank you, YouTube robot. But it's true. That's the reality that we live in. But for us here at Geeky Stoics, like, one of the core tenets of Stoicism, and we talk about all the time here, that's personal responsibility, like controlling the things that you can control. And we can't change the algorithm, but we can change how we engage with stories. We can be more intentional with it. So lately I've been thinking about like stepping back from algorithm entertainment, which is to say like social media mainly, like stepping back from social media, short form content, especially whatever Netflix is suggesting next, less passive doom scrolling, but instead more deliberate consumption of media that actually means something. And that's the steps that I challenge you to do. Like, maybe that means going old school. This is things that I've been thinking about, and I'd be really curious in the comments if any of this resonates with you or is something that you're doing right now. But I'm thinking about going a lot more old school and like starting to build and curate my own collection of physical media rather than relying on streaming services. Like, I want to host in-person movie nights with actual human beings over to do like a extended edition of Lord of the Rings marathon or rewatches of the original trilogy. I don't want to let my own disenfranchisement with some of the direction of the Star Wars franchise to like pull my energy away from the original films that mean so much to me. That really defined a lot of the way I see the world, because that's what these movies do. I want to be more selective with music. Like, I was watching a YouTube video the other day about like reviving your old iPod and abandoning Spotify and actually curating your own list of downloaded MP3 files the same way we used to. And this is something I actually already have done, which is just deleting social media apps off of my phone. It's made a huge difference. I usually do it as like a small fasting for periods of time, but I really am thinking about a more systematic way to like remove social media content from my life. And to that, I mean like engaging with media and people that I know, like, or trust, that I know have something interesting and edifying to say about the world, and not just whatever is going to entertain me for a few minutes scrolling through Instagram reels. And maybe Geeky Stoics can be a part of that shift. Like, that is something Steve and I want to build, which is this community that celebrates these stories in their original form before the dark times of all the empire. No, before these stories became the intellectual property of lifeless media corporate franchises. There, I said it. Because we can't change the entertainment industry single-handedly, but we can change the way that we interact with some of these stories, because we need to remember, as we say it all the time here on Geeky Stoics, your favorite stories are telling you something. And the question is, are you listening? May the force be with you.